The night that changed everything, James Harden was supposed to be preparing for one last championship run. Instead, his name exploded across NBA headlines for a reason nobody expected. In the middle of the offseason, with no games, no bright arena lights, and no playoff pressure, Harden was back in Houston, the city where he became a legend. This was supposed to be familiar ground, his city, his comfort zone, his backyard. But in the early hours of the morning, everything changed. According to court records cited in reports, Harden was taken into custody after officers allegedly noticed a handgun inside a vehicle connected to him. The issue was not just the weapon itself, it was where it was seen, how it was positioned, and the fact that it immediately turned a quiet offseason night into a legal situation with real consequences. For most NBA stars, summer is about workouts, contract talks, recovery, and planning the next move. For Harden, this summer suddenly became about court dates, bond conditions, team statements, and a future that no longer feels guaranteed. And that is what makes this story so dangerous for his career. Because Harden is not just any player. He is a former MVP, a scoring champion, an offensive genius, and one of the most influential guards of his generation. But he is also 36 years old, still chasing the one thing missing from his resume: an NBA championship. Cleveland believed he could help them get there. The Cavaliers had already taken a major risk by building around a core that included Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and Harden. But now, the same player they were counting on to stabilize their title hopes has become the center of an offseason storm. The timing could not be worse. A playoff disappointment was already hanging over him. Contract decisions were already waiting. Questions about his postseason legacy were already loud. And now, one late-night incident in Houston has turned the entire conversation from basketball to trust, risk, and whether Cleveland can still bet its future on James Harden. So here is the real question. Is this just a legal bump in the road or the beginning of the end for Harden's final championship dream? Before we go deeper, comment where you are watching from. If you think Harden deserves another chance, press 1. If you think Cleveland should walk away, press 2. And subscribe, because this story is far from over. The Houston morning nobody saw coming. The night did not begin like a scandal. It began like an off-season routine. For a superstar who knew Houston better than almost anyone in the league, James Harden was not in a strange city. He was not surrounded by unfamiliar streets or hostile crowds. He was in Houston, the place where his beard became iconic, where his step-back three became a weapon, and where his name once meant must-see basketball every single night. That is why the scene feels so strange. A quiet off-season night. A group of friends, a hookah lounge, no playoff cameras, no national broadcast, no roaring crowd waiting for him to take the final shot. Just Harden, his people, and the city that still remembers him as one of its greatest basketball legends. Then the clock moved deep into the morning. Around 3:41 a.m., everything shifted from nightlife to legal trouble. Reports say officers observed a handgun inside a vehicle connected to Harden. The weapon was allegedly visible, not properly secured, and not hidden away. In that moment, the story stopped being about where Harden might sign next. It stopped being about whether Cleveland could run it back. It became about a legal case, and Harden did not run from the moment. According to the original report, he acknowledged the weapon was his. That detail matters because it made the situation direct. There was no long mystery, no complicated public denial, no immediate basketball explanation that could cover it up. He was taken into custody, booked, and later released after posting bond. But the amount of money was never the real issue. For a player who has earned superstar money for years, the bond itself was nothing. The damage came from the headline: James Harden arrested. That sentence alone is enough to change an offseason. Because in the NBA, perception moves faster than the legal system, fans react instantly. Front offices get nervous instantly. Sponsors pay attention instantly. And once a player's name moves from the sports page to the legal page, the conversation becomes bigger than basketball. For Harden, the worst part is not just what happened, it is when it happened. He had just come out of another painful playoff ending. Cleveland had championship dreams, but the season finished with disappointment. Harden's performance in the biggest moments was already being questioned. People were already asking whether he could still be trusted when the pressure was highest. Then this happened. One late-night mistake, one visible weapon, one police report, and suddenly the Cavaliers had a problem they never planned for. The charge that changed the negotiation. The legal side of the story is not just background noise. It is the part that could quietly reshape James Harden's entire summer. The charge connected to the case is about unlawful carrying of a weapon in a motor vehicle. The key detail is not simply that a weapon existed. The issue is how it was carried, where it was seen, and whether it followed the rules required under Texas law. According to the original report, the handgun was visible inside the vehicle and not properly secured in a holster. That is the detail that turned a private night into a public case. For most fans, legal language can sound distant and cold, but for an NBA front office, it becomes very real. A misdemeanor may not sound career-ending at first, but it still creates risk. It creates questions. It creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is one thing teams hate when millions of dollars are on the table. Harden was released on bond, but the bond conditions were serious enough to send a message. No weapons, restrictions on alcohol and drugs, random testing, a court date waiting on the calendar. That is not the kind of offseason routine a veteran star wants when he is trying to negotiate what could be one of the final major contracts of his career. Before this, the Cavaliers could focus on basketball. They could ask simple questions. Can Harden still create shots? Can he still run the offense? Can he help Donovan Mitchell in late game situations? Can he give Cleveland the playoff experience it needs? Now the questions are different. Can the team trust the situation? Will the league review it? Will sponsors react? Will the contract need protection? Will this become a distraction before training camp even begins? And that is where the charge becomes bigger than the charge. Because the NBA does not operate only inside courtrooms. It operates in public opinion, social media clips, locker room trust, and franchise image. Even if Harden avoids the worst legal outcome, the Cavaliers still have to decide how much risk they are willing to carry. This is why the timing is brutal. Harden has a player option. Cleveland has salary pressure. The team already made a massive move to bring him in. Everyone expected this summer to be about finding the right contract structure. Instead, the negotiation now has a shadow over it. And in professional sports, shadows can cost real money. The legend behind the headline. To understand why this story feels so heavy, you have to remember who James Harden really is. This is not a random role player fighting for a roster spot. This is one of the most important offensive players the NBA has seen in the modern era. Harden did not just score points. He changed how basketball was played, studied, defended, and criticized. The step-back three became his signature. The slow rhythm dribble, the sudden burst, the defender leaning the wrong way, then the shot rising before the crowd even realized what happened. For years, Harden made the impossible look routine. In Houston, he was not just a star. He was the system. The Rockets gave him the ball, cleared the floor, and trusted him to bend defenses until they broke. He led the league in scoring. He won MVP. He produced numbers that placed him beside the greatest names in NBA history. There were nights when guarding Harden felt less like basketball and more like survival. 30 points felt normal, 40 felt possible. 50 never felt shocking. That is how great he was. But greatness creates expectations, and expectations create pressure. Harden's legacy has always been split into two conversations. In the regular season, he was a genius. In the playoffs, people kept waiting for the full masterpiece. Every year, the same question returned. Could he carry that brilliance through the deepest rounds? Could he win when every possession became heavier? The answer has never fully arrived. Houston ended without a title. Brooklyn collapsed under pressure and injuries. Philadelphia turned ugly. Los Angeles did not become the permanent home he needed. Cleveland was supposed to be different. Cleveland was supposed to be the place where Harden no longer had to carry everything alone. Donovan Mitchell could attack. Evan Mobley could protect the paint and grow into a star. Jarrett Allen could anchor the middle. Harden could be the veteran creator, the missing piece, the calm hand in chaos. That was the dream. But now, the dream has been interrupted by a headline that has nothing to do with basketball. And that is the tragedy of this moment. Harden's career is too great to be reduced to one incident, but his timing is too fragile to ignore it. At 36, every season matters. Every decision matters. Every mistake becomes louder. For a young star, there is time to recover. For Harden, time is the one thing he no longer controls. The playoff ghost that never left. The hardest part about James Harden's story is that his biggest enemy has never been talent. It has always been timing. When he is rolling in the regular season, Harden can look like one of the smartest players alive. He reads defenders like a book. He controls pace. He draws help. He creates shots for teammates. He can turn a normal possession into a math problem the defense cannot solve. But the playoffs have always asked a different question. Can you do it when the scouting report is sharper? Can you do it when every defender knows your first move? Can you do it when the whistle gets tighter, the legs get heavier, and every missed shot feels like it will live forever? That question has followed Harden from team to team. In Oklahoma City, he reached the finals, but he was still the young third option behind Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. In Houston, he became the face of a franchise but ran into the wall of the Warriors dynasty. In Brooklyn, the superstar experiment never fully became what fans imagined. In Philadelphia, the ending was filled with tension. In Los Angeles, the future never felt secure. Then came Cleveland. This was supposed to be the reset. Not the young Harden, Not the Houston Harden carrying every possession, not the frustrated Harden searching for control. This version was supposed to be wiser, calmer, more experienced, and ready to win in a different way. But when Cleveland needed him most, the playoff doubts came back. The shooting numbers hurt. The missed threes hurt. The sweep hurt even more. Fans did not just see a team lose. They saw an old storyline return at the worst possible time. Harden was still brilliant in flashes, still dangerous, still capable of controlling a game, but the question remained the same. Could Cleveland truly win a championship with him as one of its most important pieces? That question was already painful before the arrest. Now, it is unavoidable. Because when a player is young and rising, teams tolerate uncertainty. When a player is older and expensive, teams calculate everything. The playoff struggles become part of the contract conversation. The legal issue becomes part of the trust conversation. The age becomes part of the risk conversation. Harden is not fighting one battle anymore. He is fighting three at the same time: the court case, the contract, and the ghost of every playoff disappointment that came before this summer. That is why this moment feels bigger than one headline. It feels like the final test of a complicated career. Cleveland's gamble suddenly looks dangerous. Cleveland did not bring James Harden in for a small role. They brought him in because they believed he could help turn a very good team into a championship team. That is what makes this situation so complicated. The Cavaliers already had Donovan Mitchell, one of the most explosive guards in the league. They already had Evan Mobley, a young defensive anchor with star potential. They already had Jarrett Allen, a reliable big man who gives them size, toughness, and stability. But they still needed another creator, another veteran, another player who had lived through the pressure of deep playoff runs. That was supposed to be Harden. The Cavaliers did not just sign him casually. They made a real basketball sacrifice. Moving Darius Garland was not a small decision. Garland was homegrown. He was loved by many fans. He was part of Cleveland's identity. Trading him meant the front office was choosing a new direction. They were saying, "This is our window," and James Harden is part of the plan. But now the plan has a crack in it, because when a team gives up a major piece for an older superstar, the margin for error is tiny. Harden does not have 5 years to prove it works. Cleveland does not have unlimited money to fix mistakes. Mitchell's prime is happening right now. Mobley's rise is happening right now. The East is not waiting for Cleveland to figure out its drama, and that is why one legal situation can create such a massive ripple. The Cavaliers now have to ask questions they never wanted to ask. Is Harden still worth the money? Is he still worth the public pressure? Will this story follow him into training camp? Will teammates see it as a distraction? Will the league step in? Will fans trust him if the season starts badly? Before the arrest, Cleveland's Harden decision was about basketball. After the arrest, it became about risk management, and that changes everything. The money problem, nobody can ignore. The business side of the NBA can be colder than the game itself. On the court, a player can earn trust with one big shot. In the front office, every dollar has to make sense. Every contract can either open a championship window or destroy one. And right now, James Harden's next contract is no longer just about what he can do with a basketball. It is about age, playoff history, legal uncertainty, salary restrictions, and Cleveland's long-term future. Harden has a major player option hanging over the summer. If he picks it up, he keeps a huge payday. If he declines it, he can try to work out a new deal with the Cavaliers. Before this incident, many around the league believed the ending was almost obvious. Harden would return. Cleveland would structure the money. Both sides would move forward. Now, it does not feel that simple. The Cavaliers are already dealing with salary pressure. Donovan Mitchell is expensive. Evan Mobley is expensive. Jarrett Allen's money matters. The second apron makes roster building even harder. This is not a team with unlimited flexibility. Cleveland cannot afford to pay for the past if the future becomes unstable. That is the brutal part for Harden. His resume says superstar, his age says caution, his playoff history says concern, and now this legal issue gives the Cavaliers another reason to protect themselves at the negotiation table. Maybe they reduce guaranteed money. Maybe they add contract protections. Maybe they shorten the deal. Maybe they wait longer than Harden wants. Every option gives Cleveland leverage, and every delay puts pressure on Harden's camp. This is how quickly power can shift in the NBA. 1 week, Harden looks like the veteran piece Cleveland needs to chase a ring. The next week, he becomes a financial question mark with a court date attached. And for a player this late in his career, that is dangerous because the league remembers greatness, but it pays for what comes next. The locker room question. Championship teams are not built only with talent. They are built with trust. That is why this moment matters inside the Cavaliers locker room. Donovan Mitchell needs to know the people around him are fully locked in. Evan Mobley needs stability as he grows into a bigger role. Jarrett Allen needs a team that can focus on basketball, not headlines. Coaches need veterans who calm the room, not bring extra noise into it. Harden was supposed to be that veteran. He has seen everything. MVP pressure, trade rumors, superstar teammates, brutal playoff losses, angry fans, national criticism. He knows how loud the NBA can get. That experience should have been valuable for Cleveland. But now, the question is whether Harden is bringing wisdom or distraction. That does not mean his teammates will abandon him. NBA locker rooms are complicated. Players understand mistakes. They understand pressure. They understand that public headlines do not always tell the full human story. Mitchell and the Cavs may still believe Harden can help them win, but belief is not the same as certainty, and championship teams need certainty. If the season starts well, this story may fade. Winning has a way of cleaning up almost everything, but if Cleveland struggles, if Harden looks slow, if the offense stalls, if another headline appears, then this incident will come back instantly. Fans will mention it, media will mention it, opposing crowds will mention it. That is the burden Harden now carries. He is not just trying to prove he can still play, he is trying to prove he can still be trusted. Trusted by the front office, trusted by teammates, trusted by fans, trusted in the biggest moments of the season. For Harden, the real test may not be the court date alone. It may be whether the Cavaliers still look him in the eye and see a championship piece, not a championship risk. 7 days that could define the final act. The most dramatic part of this entire story is the calendar. First comes the court date, then comes the contract deadline. Just days apart. 2 moments, 2 decisions, 1 career hanging in the middle. For James Harden, this is not just another offseason. This may be the final major turning point of his NBA life. At 36, soon moving deeper into the final stage of his career, Harden does not have endless chances left. He has money, he has fame, he has awards, he has records, he has unforgettable highlights. But the one thing he does not have is the thing every critic brings up first. A championship ring. That missing ring has followed him everywhere. It followed him out of Houston, it followed him through Brooklyn, it followed him through Philadelphia, it followed him through Los Angeles. And now it is standing right beside him in Cleveland, louder than ever. The Cavaliers were supposed to be his last great opportunity. Not because they were perfect, but because they had enough. Mitchell could carry the scoring load, Mobley could become a defensive monster, Allen could give them toughness, Harden could organize everything, slow the game down, create shots, and maybe finally win without having to be the entire system. But now, before that dream even gets another season, he has to survive the noise. The legal case may not destroy his career. It may end with a manageable outcome. It may become something that fades with time. But the damage to momentum is already real. The Cavaliers must think harder. Harden's representatives must negotiate smarter. Fans must decide whether they still believe. And Harden himself has to look in the mirror. Because this is bigger than one charge. It is about discipline, timing, responsibility, awareness. It is about understanding that when you are a superstar, even private moments can become public storms. That is the painful truth. James Harden built a Hall of Fame career by controlling the game. He controlled pace, he controlled defenders, he controlled angles, he controlled the whistle. But right now, the one thing he cannot fully control is the story around him. And that story is getting louder. The legacy decision. Every great NBA career eventually reaches a moment when talent is no longer the entire story. For James Harden, that moment may be right now. When basketball fans talk about Harden 20 years from now, they will remember the scoring explosions. They will remember the step-back 3 that changed the game. They will remember defenders looking helpless as he controlled every possession. They will remember the MVP season, the scoring titles, the All-Star appearances, and the nights when he seemed impossible to stop. Those accomplishments are permanent. Nobody can take them away, but legacy is not built only on achievements. It is also built on how a player responds when things go wrong. And right now, things have gone wrong. The legal situation has created uncertainty, the playoff disappointment has created doubt, the contract negotiations have become more complicated, the pressure from fans, media, and the organization has become heavier. This is the crossroads. One path leads toward redemption, the other leads toward regret. The encouraging reality for Harden is that his story is not over. He is still productive, he is still talented, he is still capable of helping a contender win basketball game. The Cavaliers still have a championship caliber core. Donovan Mitchell remains one of the league's elite stars. Evan Mobley continues to develop into a franchise cornerstone. The opportunity is still there, but opportunity alone means nothing. Execution is everything. The next chapter of Harden's career will not be determined by what he did in Houston. It will not be determined by his MVP trophy. It will not be determined by his scoring title. It will be determined by the choices he makes from this point forward. Can he eliminate distraction? Can he regain the trust of everyone around him? Can he focus completely on basketball? Can he finally deliver when the stakes are highest? Those are the questions that matter now, because the truth is, championship windows do not stay open forever. Every season that passes becomes more valuable. Every offseason becomes more important. Every mistake becomes more costly. The margin between success and failure becomes smaller and smaller. For young players, there is always next year. For veterans nearing the end of legendary careers, there is no guarantee of another chance. That is why this story mattered. Not because of one night, not because of one headline, not because of one court appearance. It matters because it may determine how the final chapter of James Harden's basketball journey is written. Will fans remember a superstar who overcame adversity and finally reached the mountaintop? Or will they remember one of the greatest offensive players in NBA history whose championship dream slipped away? Only time can answer that question. But one thing is certain. The next few months may be the most important months James Harden has faced in years. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video with other NBA fans. We want to hear your opinion as well. Does James Harden still have one championship run left in him? Comment 1 if you believe he can still win a ring. Comment 2 if you think his best opportunity has already passed. And tell us where you're watching from, because NBA fans from all over the world are following this story closely. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.